I want to welcome our guest today, who is Christy Nightingale, who is the CEO of Premier Match. Premier Match is a matchmaking service for the successful, the wealthy, the famous, the accomplished. Because you always think, well, why do they need it? But if you think about it, sometimes that's the person who needs help more than anybody else, because how do you find and connect? So I think it's going to be a fascinating discussion to find out how Christy got into this, learn about her life. For those who are new to Success in the City and CEO Chick Chat, this is an intimate interview. It's a conversation between two girlfriends over coffee, discussing their lives and how they came to be where they are. So if you're a little surprised, that's really the genre of what we're going to do here. So Christy, welcome.
Thank you.
So much appreciate you joining us today and talking about your business and what you do. So let's start at the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in northern New Jersey, and then through my life I lived there and then went off to college. I also stayed in New Jersey. I went to Seton Hall University, and after graduation I moved into Manhattan.
Well, that's really, where in New Jersey were you raised? What
Union
town?
County, Union.
I kind of know where that was when I moved back to the United States after being away, growing up overseas in Japan. I ended up in New Jersey, so I'm familiar with that area.
Oh, okay.
So it was a culture shock coming back to the United States and coming to New Jersey. So tell me a little bit about your parents. What'd your dad do? What'd your mom do?
My father was in the state police, and my mother worked for Eastern Airlines. So, and my mother worked throughout our entire childhood.
Interesting. So your dad is a state policeman. He had a gun. He was a trooper. Is that kind of what he did?
Yeah, well, he moved up in the ranks, and then he retired as lieutenant station commander for the police, and he was stationed right around the Newark area. But he was, at that time, because it wasn't so populated, I guess, than it is now, but he was in charge of the entire patrol of the turnpike all the way from the very tip of New Jersey down to like New Brunswick, if any of you are from there.
Wow, wow.
So it was a very high pressure job for him. He was working crazy hours. He was constantly called in. I mean, you know, there were terrible things that were going on as far as accidents, deaths, shootings. You know, it's when you're growing up, you don't really, you see what he's going through, but you don't really take it in as far as what it really entailed. You know.
Did you watch the series Sopranos?
Oh yeah.
Was it anything like that?
I wouldn't say that he was involved with any of that, but I have to say the town that I grew up in Union, there were a lot of mafia, you know, issues going on. A few of my girlfriends married into, you know, we all know the household names. I'd rather not put it on the webpage.
Yeah, well, I'm Italian. We call that family.
But yeah, and then where, I mean, moving forward, where my husband and I lived, we lived a few towns over from where The Sopranos was really supposed to be, you know,
the
filmed.
town where it is.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, when you grew up and your mom working, that must have been a little bit unusual. I think at that time, mothers were not necessarily always working. How was that for you, and what did you find that experience to be like?
I thought it was odd. I remember being in grade school, and every child was given a placard, and you know, what does your father do? What does your mother do? And all of my friends, you know, their mothers were housewives. They were home. And my mother, I was like embarrassed to put down that my mother worked. And I don't know why. I thought maybe there was this feeling of maybe she was not with us or ignoring us. So I did have some issues with that growing up. I was the oldest, and I felt like, you know, I was always taking care of my sister, who was 4 years younger than me, and where was my mother? I mean, my mother worked, the shift at Eastern Airlines at Newark Airport was from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 10 p.m. And my grandmother, her mother, lived with us, so my grandmother would get us up at 7 o'clock in the morning, feed us, get us off to school. By the time we got home at 3, you know, my mother was still working, I would be in bed, and then, you know, she would come home. So I wouldn't see her the entire week. So as an adult, I do have a sense of disconnect with my mother. I don't really feel that close with her because I think there is some, you know, harbored resentment involving that.
Well, especially probably because she was gone so late afternoons when you came home from school. So a lot of that relationship building, you know, early mornings. I mean, how close are we really to our kids other than yelling at them to hurry up and don't miss the bus? So I think that in that late afternoon, a lot of that relationship, you talk about what happened in school, would be interesting. I wonder now as a child how your perspective would be in that so many women work and the experiences that my mother works. So probably it would be very much a common.
I would think so. I would think that, you know, there would be a much more comfortable feeling knowing that, you know, if every other child had a mom doing this, that we probably would be more proud of the fact that, you know, what does your, you know, mother do, and talk about that a little bit more.
What was your relationship like with your sister being 4 years apart?
It was fine. I mean, you know, like any other two sisters fighting over clothes and everything else, but it was normal.
My
So,
my sister and I are like 18 months apart, so it's like Irish twins is what they call it. Then my next sister is 4 years younger, but that was the one we always picked on. But that was because we were a team, could do that. So, so growing up in New Jersey, what did you aspire to do? I mean, you had a working mom, and your dad had this dangerous job, and what did you see yourself doing?
You know, when you're a kid and everybody asks you what your goals are and what you're going to do in the future, I used to hate that because I never knew what I wanted to do. But remember, they would give you that test that they evaluated things, and then they told you probably would be really good at something. Well, my career was supposed to be in interior designing. So,
Interesting.
and I kind of enjoy that. I like, you know, I love antiquing. I love doing that sort of thing. So maybe there is some sort of truth to what they were trying to make you or ask you these questions to evaluate that. But I didn't really know, you know. I mean, I was really good at English, and so when I went off to college, I was horrendous at math. So I tried to find some sort of degree, or, you know, some sort of path that I didn't have to take a lot of math classes. So English is where that's the route I went.
When you went into college, that's what you chose to
Yeah,
study was
at
English?
least to start, and I didn't really know even when I started college what I was going to do.
So you're just taking these courses and you have no idea. So when did you begin to find maybe what might be of interest to you?
I think while I was in college, probably my second year, third year, I started to, you know, through the courses, I really enjoyed advertising, public relations, marketing. So I started to gravitate more to those types of courses.
Was that a lot? Were a lot of women in those courses at that time? What did you find your experience to be in terms of school?
Yeah, I would say there probably were 60%, 70% women in some of those courses.
That's kind of what I found my experience to be in a lot of those kind of programs. I think it's a natural indicator. Women tend to be a lot more linguistic than men do. We were a lot more verbal, so I think that would be a natural path to find women in. So, but you had to work your way through college. So share with us a little bit about what you did and what your career path was.
When I was in high school, my father played tennis with a fellow that was an advertising executive, and he approached my father and asked if I'd be interested in modeling for some of his accounts, Buick, and there were a couple other accounts that he had. So I remember my father coming home and saying, you know, Pat Gallagher wants to know if you'll model some Buicks for him or something. And I was like, what? And he said, I don't know, it pays like $200 an hour. This is back in, like, you know, 1979. And I was making $1 an hour babysitting. So I thought, what? So I started to, I did this one job for him, then I did another, and I really enjoyed it. So I started to model, and that's how that kind of went off. And after working with Pat for about a year or so, he was such a sweetheart, because then he gave me names of photographers. I started to get my book together, and then I really started to work in that capacity. So through high school into college, I always modeled on the side. And thankfully, because I was so close to New York City, I could just jump on the train in 20 minutes and I could be in Manhattan and I could, you know, work whatever jobs were going on. So as a young adult, I was like, had this side business going on, booking accounts, working with, you know, all these big companies in the city. You know, I was tall even in high school, and with all my Italian, you know, boyfriends and stuff who were like 5'7", I was here, I'm 5'9", you know, I'm like crouching, taking my shoes off at the dances, so I'd be flat-footed. I finally was thankful that I was tall, so I was booking a lot of jobs working in fashion, and it helped me get through school and pay for everything, and it made me grow up.